Hello and welcome everybody. I'm hoping you can hear me. Thank you for joining us today. My name is David Snyder. I'm a support specialist here with Aladtec, and I'm joined in the background by Nancy and Nadine to help field your questions. Jesse's here for tech support as well, so if you have any issues or if you have any problems, just let us know through the question window or maybe even the chat in the webinar control panel. Today's webinar, we have a webinar every month covering different functions of the Aladtec system. Today's webinar is going to be about 45 minutes based on if there's any Q&A at the end. We could go as far as an hour if need be. And it's going to focus on the forms of Aladtec, a very popular and powerful tool used within the system outside the scheduling piece as well. So the webinar is being recorded as always. You'll all be emailed a link to the finished recording, which you can use to share with anybody in your department or your company, or even outside the company if you want to, maybe brag a little bit about what the Aladtec system could do for them and show them this forms tool. It'll also be available in your help section for everybody else to review later if they weren't able to attend today. So please take advantage of that. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about forms, right? And we're going to go through all the different elements about forms. I'm going to show you all the tricks that I am aware of, everything from just building one from scratch to looking at some pre-made forms. You'll be able to see how you can set every form with its own set of permissions and qualifications of who can see and edit and modify a particular form or example. You'll be able to report, of course, on all your forms. They're always in there, and you'll be able to organize that report and customize it just like any other report in the system. And then filters, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with as well. We have new functions to be able to categorize these forms and make it a little easier to navigate. And of course, all these forms are available through any of our any device, all the way down to a phone or an iPad, as you can see here from the picture, and your members will be able to access it from anywhere. And then of course we'll take some Q&A. Post those questions as we go along here in the GoToWebinar panel, and they'll answer as best we can in regards to forms, and then maybe save some of those for the end to share with the group. Okay, what are the main reasons why would we use forms? Well, just on its face value, because it will make your world paperless, right? You can take any paper version of what you have on a clipboard or otherwise that's sitting on a desk or in a box, and that your members fill out for any reason. Really, it's imaginations as far as you can see, to create and capture that data within the Aladtec system, which means just as their schedule, they can access it from anywhere. They can see the information and submit a form from their phone, from their home, from any computer, as long as they're logged in. And all forms and submissions are archived within the system. There are no space issues whatsoever. There's no need to delete off forms or submissions, to save room or anything like that. You'll just be able to customize the reports to see which set of submissions you want to see. There's ability to have workflow tracking. We'll show an example of that, of how, if it's a request and it needs to go to the next step up the chain, we'll set it up where it'll ping those people and allow them to get in there and do their part and maybe sign off and go to the next step. So there's some workflow options available here. Just as anything else in the system, everything is tracked, right? An audit trail for all changes are recorded within the system. For each form, for field by field, you'll be able to see exactly anybody, what they changed and when they changed it. Notifications are a big part of it, right? People want to know when the next step's on the way, so we'll be showing you the different ways you can set up automatic notifications from the form itself, and even on a field level to direct it a little more precisely of exactly who it should go to based on choices. And then of course the reports will be there for you to manage as you will. You can create your own work queues. You can do some research. Once you get a breadth of submissions and there's maybe hundreds or thousands of different out there, and you want to pare it down to exactly what you need to find, you'll be able to do that. And then at the end, just like any report, you'll be able to export it as well, to get it into, say, a spreadsheet format and make it look a little prettier, and do some more data mining and things like that with the magic of, say, Excel tools that are available to you there. All right. So I think that takes us right into it. Let's get into what it looks like here. We are in our sample system. Looking at it from Joe Burns' point of view, or a top level admin, and you have your forms tab here. If you haven't used this before, we're hoping that this gets you jump started, because what we have found is that once people get started on even just one simple form, it just kind of creates that domino effect. They love it so much, you just end up using more and more and more. So we hope you get a chance to get in here and just even test it, because that's one of the best parts of the system, is that it allows you to, as an admin, play with the system, or play with a form, if you will, and make sure it's going to work out before you release it to everybody. And it just allows you to, try it out. It's free. Why wouldn't you? And if you have a form that you have in mind, you can build it from scratch. You can have it right in here. Or if you say, didn't have the time, or you didn't have the energy or effort to put that forth, you can, you use your unlimited tech support with us as well. You can call us and talk about it. You can email in that form to us, and we can help you get it built, because we want you to use this function. So we're going to go right to the form configurator here, and that's our term for getting into basically the design aspect of building a form. You can see some other forms that are already set to be submitted within this particular system. We have a lot of them in here, everything from COVID-19 to checklists, uniform requests, timesheets, and you can see they're broken out by category here, and I'm going to show you how to utilize that function. But let's just go to the form configurator here and just kind of start fresh here. So we're in our configurator, and it's laid out with the elements on the left and the right. And as you're hovering over things, you've probably seen it in other areas of the system. Whenever you hover on anything, there'll be the little pencil, which means you can simply just click on whatever that is and make changes to those particular items. Everything within the configurator here is all drag and drop. So you can actually just, pick up any field that you want and just move it around as you wish. I'll go through the different design options here in a minute, but just to give you a general idea how this functions, and just the ease of building a form. It's even easier than, say, Microsoft Word. You don't have to get a blank piece of paper. The tools are here for you, and a lot of it is drag and drop, and it's pre-filled out for you. So you could start from the upper left here by adding a new form. And like I said, if you have a form in mind and you want to build one from scratch, that's great. But what I'm going to show you here is the ability of what we have here is just the breadth of an entire library at your disposal here of pre-made forms, or templates, if you will, to just give you a jump start on something. What we've had the benefit of doing is basically going through all the customers that we have already. Ever since this form tool has been released, they've kind of gone on their own and built all these forms on their own, and it's become a great resource for people to get something to start with. People are thinking, I have an ambulance checklist and it's pretty much standard. I mean, is there something that's already built for me? There is. You could take over here and go from any of these points and get a good starting point for, say, a checklist of some kind, and you can simply click on it and it will bring up the template, the pre-made elements of that form. There's nothing company specific or anything like that on here. It's just a simple starting point with checkboxes and sections and cabs, and so this is like a standard BLS ambulance checklist. And then you could use this as a starting point, so you could save yourself all that time from building all these fields from scratch, and then just fine tune it for your own needs. You would just click on Save As at the bottom, and then it would become one of your active forms over here on the right. So if I save this, and it's going to just say exactly that, do you want to make it one of your own? And you do. And I think this would become, might be in here already. Did we have a category on that? Oh yeah, it's under I had that preset. So it's under the pre-planned checklist as a BLS ambulance checklist. Now this form is no longer a template, it's one of your active forms. So as you can see here, as we were mentioning, you can use this template as a starting point and then make the adjustments as needed. And like I said, you can click on any of these fields if something doesn't match up correctly, or you want to call it something else. You can simply click on any of these fields and relabel it anything you want. Or if you need to add more, then you can grab something from over here in the design options. And we have things like a text box, which is strictly just a straight text box that you could just grab and drag over and call it whatever you will. right? And then has three little lines, which allows it to be expanded to make it easier to type longer sentences and such for more data in there. As you bring over any of these elements over here, you're able to click on that particular field and maybe make some more fine-tuned options available to you within those fields. Every field has its own set of options. You can make them required, which makes it a required field, essentially puts a little red asterisk next to it, forcing the member to fill that field out before it's submitted. And then there's options on this text box of short and tall, and you can even put in a default value into that field if you wish. We have other field options over here, select lists, which is similar to like this over here, and ambulance, where it allows you to put in different options for maybe a list of all your ambulances to identify which truck we're working with. And you can expand out on that as you wish. You can make one of the options a default. Again, it can make it required. We'll talk about notifications here in a little bit. Multi-option, that's so you can select more than one choice, just multiple check boxes. I'm not sure if I have any on here, but you again just click on and just add the different levels of check boxes that you wish and call it what you will, and then you'll have a choice of multiple. Checkbox is just a straight up one checkbox item. That's kind of like here, like this headlights field. Date field, it's just what you would expect. It just automatically puts it in a date format and allows you to click on it for the typical calendar date picker like we have in the rest of the system. Number forces it into a number format. So if you enter something that's not a number, it won't let you save it. So it has to be a number, and that helps you down the road for quantitative purposes, right? For reporting when you want to add up fields and things like that. We have attachment fields. Like say if this was a repair request of some kind and you wanted to put an attachment field right on the form itself, and it allows them submitter to basically attach a file to say they took a picture of something if something was broken, or they were at a scene of some kind and they needed to take a picture to report on it. They'd be able to upload that file and add it to this attachment field, a picture, a file, a PDF, whatever it might be. And you can even allow them to have multiple attachments within that field as well. We have a signature box. Let's go back to another example that might have a signature box on it. I'm going to bring up my timesheet here just to advance further into some of the other functionality here. What we have here is a signature box, so you can bring that over at any point. You can see the little X there. This allows you to capture a signature with, like say, a finger on an iPad, or with your mouse if you're on a tablet, or I'm sorry, a PC or a Mac, a computer. Be able to sign off. It may not look as pretty as a typical pen stroke, but you certainly use it and capture that. We have smart fields here as well, member and schedules, which helps you to basically pre-fill out information. If I bring over a members tab here, a members field, and hit the pencil here, it automatically pre-fills the list of options to choose from here that has the list of the current active members within that system. And every time a new submission is brought up, it brings up the most current version of active users. So that just helps you pick a name there if need be. And then also schedules are a part of that as well. If you pick up schedules, then you would have the default list of schedules, of active schedules within your system. There's different types of layouts in terms of sections here. This is what would be considered a normal section. We can even bring one over and add one and call it whatever you want. And you can have the option of breaking up into 1 or 2 or 3 columns to allow yourself some spacing there. You can call the section whatever you want and add as many of those as you need. Or you might want to bring over a grid section, which makes it a little nicer in terms of organization, where if you're having a lot of items that are similar in a row, if I can expand this out a little bit, you'll be able to have a descriptive label in the first column and then the same field options within the next column, or multiple columns as needed. So say you need a text here and a date here and a checkbox for the next one, and you can add up to 5 columns in a grid section. If you need to add instructions of any kind, that's what this descriptive text is for. You're able to come in here and just basically it's just static non-descriptive text that you'll be able to add to the form for any, like I said, any descriptions or instructions you want to put out there for people reading the form and submitting it. And then finally, we have on our timesheet here the use of a smart layout. Now, this is in advance of a smart field. This is a pay period time records section here. And if you haven't seen this before, this is really great. It just allows you to basically import in information from the schedule or the time clock for that member. And it allows them to basically review all their shifts from the past pay period without having to type them all in manually. Just to show you a quick example of that, if I'm just a typical member here in my system, and I go under forms and I go to timesheets, I'm Dave Anderson, I would be able to bring up my here's my current pay period, 2-week pay period. Here's all the shifts that come right in from the schedule and the calendar that pre-populate right into the timesheet here from that section. And I can see every shift that that member has been working, and they can come through here and say, yes, that's correct, that's correct, that's correct. Oh, wait a minute. I got held over on this shift on that particular day, and I should be, you can put in whatever notes that you need and say, hey, I should have another hour in there, and I want that to go to comp. Right, so this is just their communication instead of filling out a whole long timesheet that may take scratching it all out, and it might have some errors or typos or whatever in it. This brings in exactly what it says on the schedule, or if you were using the time clock, it might even bring in their time clock punches, which is pretty cool. And then what happens from there is that they go through and say, okay, I agree to all this, but maybe make this change in here, and then sign off with your signature. And then it would go to the next step. And we're going to show you how that workflow works so that the admin can do their part, review the changes in here, update the schedule, and sign off for themselves. Since we're in here looking at a particular, just an example, a timesheet being submitted, you'll notice here down on the bottom a couple of options of when you're submitting a particular form. You have the option to submit it, you're done and you want to just submit it to the next step. Or you'll see here that it automatically auto-saved here. There's a little grayed out here. The system auto-saves it. I think it's every 30 seconds or a minute as you're going along. So if, like, say, typically if somebody is filling out a form, especially a longer form, and they get the call, right, and they have to leave right away, well, what the system does is auto save it, and then there'll become a draft over here for that member to come back to it at a later time and complete it and then submit it in its full capacity there, and you'll see it automatically saves. And then every time I make a change, right, this button changed to save as draft to give that member kind of more of a visual cue to say, I don't trust the autosave draft part. I'm going to just save it as my own draft. And then it becomes a draft for themselves over here on the right, that they'll be able to see the dates and exactly when they submit it or have these drafts. So the drafts are only seen by the member submitting it. Even an admin wouldn't be able to go see in somebody's draft version. They only see the submitted versions. So that's something to note there. Every form automatically pre-fills in who the person is filling it out and what time of day, date and time. Once anybody submits a form, let's go back and be our admin here, and we can see for the timesheet here, we have a draft for Joe Burns, but we have some more submitted forms here listed. Yep, we're going to, they'll be able to review. These are the most recent submitted forms, and don't be discouraged by the lack of detail here. This is just more like a little submitted form dashboard, if you will, to just allow the member to see what's been submitted most recently, right? And just go through each of these and review them as necessary. And that list can get really long, and you can start paging through that. But as we're going to see, what we're going to have for your forms when you want to get to more detail and a more expansive options on how to view all these submitted forms, we're going to end up going over into reporting and your report from forms, and we'll cover that in a little more detail here soon. If the admin is reviewing a particular timesheet and they need to make their adjustments, right? As you can see, I'm clicking around in here and it's not allowing me to do anything. Well, you have to have permission to do so, but you need to click the modify submission form, which basically puts it in edit mode and then allow you to make whatever changes that you need to for your end, for the admin's end for the next step. And then they can submit it, which is basically another save. Let's go back to the configuration here and show some more options of what's available in there from a design standpoint. We cover the design options here on the left. On the right is the list of all your active forms by their category, broken out to make it a little easier to navigate and find. You'll see in the options in the upper right here the ability to archive or delete. If you archive a form, this is a really handy tool in terms of, there's always an evolution of particular forms. Um, say like a pre-planned checklist, like we were looking like an ambulance check or whatever. Well, there may be a time down the road where the form just becomes a little out of date and we need to make some changes and update what's being listed in particular vehicles or spots. So what we really strongly recommend is that you make a copy. Don't necessarily just start changing things and save it, because the system will warn you if you try to delete any particular field. It's warning you that you're going to lose all the data from that field, which you will. So you don't want to do that, right? You don't want to lose any information. So before you make any changes, just like just a good practice, do a save as, and then just call this ambulance checklist version 2. Right, or maybe a little underscore if you want to make it similar to the other naming convention, and that's okay. And then you could just work with the copy and be relieved that you're not deleting anything and don't have to have any fear in that respect. And then what you can do is release the new version out there and archive the old version, which you can then of course reference again down the road. You can see some old versions of what we've been doing here for examples. So all history is kept as long as you just kind of keep things intact. Just archive the old, release the new, and you can make as many copies as you want, and just do a save as and start again. So be careful when you're deleting here. Delete doesn't mean delete submission here. Delete means delete. Delete means delete the whole thing, right? And you'll lose not only the design of the form, but all the submissions behind the scenes that have ever been submitted for that form. So that's why we strongly recommend that you try to archive forms as opposed to deleting them, just to kind of maintain the history, right? Just like anything else in the system, we try to make it really hard to delete things in the system. So try to stay in the state of mind of archiving and not deleting. And there are cases where people delete by mistake, and then then there are some recovery options, but let's not use that as a fallback. Just try to keep away from that is kind of what I go by a mantra. So let's talk about the settings of a form. Every form lives within its own world. When you click on settings, people have the conception that it's access level that drives what they can do on forms. Not necessarily true. Every form lives within its own world in terms of permissions and access. Each form can be designated to who it needs to go to. So from the settings area here, I'm going to start from the bottom. Here's where we're going to set the permissions of who can submit a form. So you're playing with it in the background, you've been working with it, you conferred with other admins, and now you're ready to release it to the world. Okay, here you go. You turn on the submissions. That's how you do that. You can break it out by groups of people, your work groups, your access levels, or individual names. We strongly recommend that you use groups or access levels. It makes it a lot easier down the road. When people come and go, all you have to do is grant them the particular access level they need, and they will automatically get the forms that fall within that purview. So take advantage of that. Try not to do it by individual name if you can help it. The next step here is reporting. Report, what does that mean? Viewing reports. It means who gets to see all submissions, not necessarily view, not necessarily modify, but to view all submissions, meaning getting into reports and doing what they need to do there. They're just looking at them, right? They're viewing all the data on a particular form. And then of course modifications. Then you're saying who is allowed to modify a form. And actually by default, all forms are not allowed to be modified, not even by top level admins. So you literally have to turn it on for a form to be modified and tell the system who are those people that are going to be able to modify that form. And it's not just a one-time thing. They'll be able to modify it for the rest of time. Any submission they'll be able to modify at any time. So they're not necessarily locked after a certain point. You'll be able to just say, hey, the owner or the top level can add, modify, or you might be able to allow your, members to modify their own, if that's the case, if there's a little back and forth there, or allow certain groups or members to modify a submission as well, let's say like supervisors or schedulers and so forth. The owner is referring to this administrator tab here. You can have multiple what we call owners or editors of a form. This is something we want you to be careful of as well, because if they can edit or own the form, that means they can make changes, right? They can delete it, they can archive it, they can move things around, they can. So if there's an issue with authority or having too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, on a particular form, this is what drives that. TLAs, of course, have access by default, but you can designate another member to be an owner or different groups to be able to edit the form as well. Let's talk about notifications in here now. So each of your forms have the ability to be sent out as soon as they're submitted. At the moment that they're submitted, you can send out a notification to groups or individuals letting them know that a new form has been submitted, and that's basically what it'll say. The email will say, hey, a new form's been submitted, here's the link to get back to it, or the text will say, hey, there's a new form, you can log in and take a look at it. You can, again, direct those notifications by group or access level or individual names. You'll notice here in the note that just like any other notifications for a member, they get the choice. They get the choice of whether they want to be pinged or not. You as an admin may come in here and say, hey, send this to all supervisors, but maybe one of those police supervisors is more of a hands-on kind of a worker, and they don't want to get pinged on their phone or their email all the time when new forms are being submitted. They just go in when they come into shift and take a look for themselves. And that's fine, but we give those people the option to choose if they want to be notified by form notifications or not. If you're not aware, or maybe you were curious on a particular option here in the notifications for any particular member, the alerts, in regard to the schedule requests over here is the form notification for that type of alert. So they can turn on and off text or email for themselves. So we're talking about, this is a general notification from the form itself whenever it's submitted. Now, let's go into, say, the timesheet and go down to talk about if we need to maybe have a workflow in place, and the next step of an admin level or a captain sign off or a supervisor sign off or something like that, and they need to be notified at the time that it's their turn, right? You need to move it to that next step. Well, you can set what's called a field level notification as part of a field to trigger the form to be sent to that person based on a choice of a particular field. And when I say choice, I'm talking about the select list, a multi-option, or perhaps even a date. So let's use a select list by chance here. Let's use a multi-option here, and let's just call it complete. And then we're just going to set this, and we're going to say yes, and we'll just leave one as no. So now this particular field has a choice, right? And when the member signs off on it, they'll also check a box saying that the form is completed. And because based on their choice of yes, now these choices can be whatever you want. Of course, I'm being very simplistic here. If they choose yes, you'll see these links over here to add a notification. And again, it gives you that choice of, hey, if they pick yes, the system is going to ping an individual level or group and let them know it's their turn, right? It needs to go up to the dispatch supervisor, the police supervisor, or Joe the captain if it's an individual name, and so forth. And so the notification would not get sent out unless that field has been chosen as, say, a yes for that particular choice. And you could just leave no alone, or if they pick no, and maybe somebody else needs to know about it. And another example of that is, say, a department field. Say you put a department field for a a repair request. If it's a computer, it goes to the IT department. If it's a vehicle, it goes to the garage. And if it's uniforms, it goes to somewhere else or whatever. If something needs to be fixed, then you can direct that particular notification as you will using the field level notifications here. You'll notice here too, as well as picking groups or individual names, there's one here called non-member. So what this means is we get that a lot from, say, that repair request I was mentioning when, it needs to be fixed and go to the garage. Well, the garage, maybe the mechanic is not a normal part of the scheduling software here, and I don't want to have him log into the system and, be another active member that I have to pay for in the system and so forth. That's fine. You can still let them know that there's something coming, right? You could still let them know that this request is coming their way because they're a non-member. You can check the box and you can put in one email address in here, which will ping that email and let them know that a new repair request is coming, or in this case, it's completed and it says yes. It just sends the field level information and details through the email to that person. They will not be able to click a link or log into the system. It doesn't give them credentials. It really is nothing else other than the alert itself. It's a notification only, just to let them know it's coming. So that's a nice feature that we've added here in the last year or so, to be able to add in an outside email address for particular field choices. Let me show you a date example when it comes to, say, those repair requests. If you put in a date field anywhere and you look at the notifications for that date, let's say, this is a label that says, please have done by a certain date, and they pick a date. Well, what if that date is tomorrow? Maybe they need, and somebody is just not aware that that repair request has even come in, and they're thinking, well, it's got to be done by tomorrow. Somebody better know about it right away. The date is a choice, and you can have that ping based on the date that is chosen. So you can say, hey, if they chose yesterday, and then, or if like a drug is expired and we need to do something about it right now, if it's passed, let somebody know. Or if it's within the next 1 or 2 days, somebody's got to know right away so they can get on it, or either or. You can do it for both. So the date one is, I see it rarely used, but I think it would be really handy when it comes to, say, those drug expirations, or something's broken, or something along those lines, and you got to let that next group or department know that they need to get their part in to get it done. So the date has a notification option on it as well. Okay, let's jump over. That kind of covers a lot of what the design of it is. Let's look at some examples of forms that have been submitted, and what do we do after the fact. Right? We've got a bunch of timesheets out there. We got some some COVID screenings we need to review, or whatever it is. That's when you're going to come over to reports, and you're going to go look at the breadth of submissions that have come in. Let's just use COVID. I know it's not a popular subject, but it's out there, right? A lot of you have been using the COVID employee screening form, which is basically saying, verify that you don't have a cough or a fever and you're okay and you took your temperature and so forth. And so you would go into the report from this form, and it defaults to showing you all the submissions of a particular form, and you may have tens, hundreds, thousands, and that's certainly possible. We've seen it. You'll just see it all laid out. Each row is its own submission of that particular form, and it lays out by columns every field value along the way. So this is just your data capture of all the data. And these are hyperlinks that'll take you back to the form if you want to see it. Top levels have the ability to trash a particular submission if need be. Like I said, they don't need to be trashed, but if there's like one double, somebody submitted 2 by mistake, or just a test one or something like that, you can certainly get rid of them. And it has the default information and then all the data along with it. Now you can pare down what you're looking at, just like any other report, by a different range of time, or just any single day, week, pay period, monthly, and you can look at it from any angle that you wish. And then of course there's the filter options here. This is a big part of what you could utilize in terms of figuring out what it is you really want to see, right? Let's just say, for example, we want to see anybody that's had a cough. It's easy to see right here, there's only one, but maybe, like I said, there's thousands of them. How do we know who's had a cough in the last year or whatever? Well, we can edit and take a different snapshot of what we're looking at on this report and add and remove columns and filter based on different criteria here. So I'm going to edit. Every field has its own checkbox, and I can turn these things on and off. And it goes down to looking at, say, filters here, and you can filter on all sorts of criteria. And I'm going to filter based on the form itself. So I'm literally going to go look at the what's the name of it? Is it cough? Oh, I got to turn it on here. Where is it? Okay. Was it not on there? Well, I had it from before. My apologies. Well, we could use temperature. Oh, that's from a grid section. That's why that's coming up that way. That's right. Okay, that's fine. We'll come from a temperature point of view, and we can say, hey, if the temperature, if their temperature was a particular value, you'd be able to filter on that and apply, and it would filter all the other examples in the background. Let's use time of screening. Let's say, show me every time of screening that was at 8. And it just hides all those other submissions in the background and shows me only the time of screenings that were at 8. And then you could save that for later, and that you could utilize that filter option to be able to view that later down the road. I think I had one in here before. Oh, here's a supervisor unsigned. So what that means is for that particular filter, save filter that we've had from before, it says I can actually flip to it, and now it's showing me all submissions that do not have a supervisor signature, because it remembers from what I saved that filter from before, show me all the signature fields that are empty, right? And if I take off that filter, then all the other ones come back and we can see the little X. What's really cool about this, I don't know if you're aware of this, but for signatures, you can actually just click on that little link and see the signature on the form. Kind of a cool little deal. So let me show you another example of that on filtering here. A good one is timesheets. When we mentioned timesheets, that might have triggered something in your head to say, hey, timesheets to capture those sign-offs is great. And it's by pay period, right? Well, there's the time that they submit a form, and then there's the pay period that it refers to, right? So you can filter on this pay period and say, show me all submissions for just the current pay period, because I don't care about the old ones. I don't want to see new ones. You can again click in edit here and come down to the pay period range and say, you know what, show me all the submissions for that particular pay period. That's actually old, so let's say something a little more recent here. Let's go to here. And there aren't many submissions in here by example, but as you can see, all the others hide in the background, and now I'm seeing only the timesheet submissions from a particular pay period. And you could utilize this to help you see who's submitted a form and who hasn't, and get all the data from it if necessary. Usually the timesheet is more just kind of a communication and the verification between the two parties that they agree of what shifts they work that pay period. It's a verification. Back on the, let's see, on the COVID's form here, I mentioned that the audit trail, right? Everything is recorded in change. If there's been any changes to any form, that's what this little history clock is referring to here. So anytime a form has been modified and something has changed within that form, you'll see this little clock next to the submission here to the date, and you can actually click on that. If you go to that particular form and click on that history clock, it brings up the light box here that shows you exactly what modification happened, by who, what time, and you click on details, and you can see that pretty much means they signed off on it. So Any changes are recorded. So if they have the ability to modify and they make a change, it's not like it's, you know, they're doing it behind the scenes where nobody knows. It's all recorded, all those history and changes. I mentioned those categories. I'm kind of doing some cleanup here with the rest of what I haven't covered so far. The form categories here to help you organize the list of forms. You know, it could get really long. It's alphabetical normally, but if you need to break them up into categories here, which makes it a lot easier to navigate, you know, through the list here, that's in your setup area. The link in the upper left. There's a forms option here where you can add and remove and order the list of all your form categories to place them in as you wish, and you can just pick them up and move them. You can call them whatever you want and add new ones as well, and that just automatically provides new categories for your forms, and each form has the setting of what category it belongs to. Your forms are mobile friendly, of course. We'll just go back and be a regular member, Dave Anderson from before. And if he was on his phone and was in his, you know, this is just a big example of the mobile version, you know, all accessible again from the mobile version, right? You just click on the little menu in the upper right, you go to your forms, right? And here's where Dave goes and he starts to fill out his timesheet. And it basically is the same type of format to see all that. And I'm just on my phone now and just clicking along and, you know, filling out what I need to and do my sign off and submit. You can save as a draft as well. So everything from forms is available on the mobile site as well. And and then if you want, you can flip back and forth between the mobile site and the full site, which is pretty cool. All right, let me check my notes here and see what else I might want to cover here. Filters. I think this might be a chance to, you know, I've really kind of gotten through the breadth of things here. I'm going to look at the list of questions here and see how we're faring on that. If you give me a moment to just look through the questions here. Oh yeah, Todd is asking about the notifications of what is submitted as part of those notifications in the email and the text. He's saying, um, the email would provide a little more data than the text, right? You know, like the rest of the system, there's, for text messages, you know, we are limited by the mobile carriers as to the number of characters that can come across on a text. So yes, those are a little more concise to just let you know about the notification that there is a new submission, or it might have some, minor field information of what field has been changed, but it's not going to have a link, say, back to the system. It's more of just a straight notification there. The email will have more detail on it because that allows you to add more detail, and it will include a link back to the actual form itself. So we are aware of those limitations, and we hear that a lot. So we're constantly working with the carriers and our system to allow as much as possible to get all that out to you. So we are aware of that. Oh, Joe is asking, where are the pre-made forms again? Great, great. Thanks for asking, Joe. Of course, if you add new form, right, go right into your form configurator from the forms tab into the form configurator and just add new form. And when you add new form, you'll have the whole breadth of over 200 pre-made forms that we have out here to use as templates. And you'll see right here, this one I created within this particular system, now it has a check mark next to it, telling me I already have that one. I have that one as an active form in my system already, which is pretty cool. So yeah, you'll see, you can browse this whole list of whatever you might use, and you can browse them all. You have at it. If you want to start from scratch, there's a link for an add blank form here in the upper left, and just start from scratch and just make it whatever you want. Can you export a data? Jared's asking, can you export the data from specific forms later? Yes, you're right. I didn't mention that. So if we were back here on our COVID screening forms and we want to get this information out of the system, it's the same export icon as in regular reporting here, the little box with the arrow coming out to the right, which allows you to take this data, it's rows and columns. It's basically exports to a text delimited CSV file, which then you can import into most spreadsheet programs and manipulate it from there, and just imports it like into Excel. Do we have a canine farm? I thought that sounds familiar. I thought there might have been one. Maybe you're the one to give it to us. Maybe we build one with you, and we can have that as part of our pre-made form list for everybody else. We're all about community here to share across customers here the ability of all these forms to save everybody that time. If there isn't one in there, we'll do some research after the meeting here today and see if there might be one we're not aware of. I know Nadine is very familiar with the list of forms, and I'm not sure if she's aware of one or not, but we'll dig for you there and see if we can find one. And if you have one, an example that, like I said in the beginning, send it to us. Email support@aladtec.com your form. Scan a piece of paper, you have it on a file, you have a Word document, you have a spreadsheet, whatever you have, send it to us. We'd love to see it and get it built for you out there. And if it's something that we think could be used by everybody else, we can work on getting that in as the part of the default list. Great. Thanks for that question and asking. Before we get to run away from us here, there will be a survey at the end of our session here today, and we would love for you to take the opportunity to provide feedback to us to let us know how we're doing. Right? How was it today? Were there any issues? Is there something we missed? Would you rather see something else? Do you have an idea for something else? Is there something in the system you'd really love to cover in more detail like this on a webinar? Tell us. If you want to hear somebody else's voice, tell us that too. We can go through, we want to hear the feedback to make these the most beneficial here for you as we provide these month by month. And it'll, of course, like I mentioned, be saved to your help section, and you'll all be emailed to hear a link. And gosh, let me just do one last check here on the questions panel. Oh, here we go. Oh, here's a couple more. Kim is asking, could an out of class be added to the current timesheet form? I think we need a little more definition of what you mean there by out of class. I think we can have that discussion with you outside the meeting here and get some more detail on what you're looking for there. Basically, the timesheet is going to import any shift for that member on the calendar. If you want to put them in a training, put them on a training on the schedule, it'll automatically get added to the timesheet. So it's just going to import whatever is there, including time off, by the way. All their time off entries will be there as well. Christine is asking, is it possible to create forms that total and subtotal rows and columns? Interestingly enough, that is a common request. There is a totaling feature in one of these. Oh yeah, the report here will total certain forms and columns for you if you have those items. It won't do it within the form itself necessarily unless you have that timesheet. You'll notice on the timesheet here, let's go to example of one of those. On the timesheet here, it will total the total number of hours because it's part of that pay period section here that's kind of pre-built into that. You just can't build one ad hoc for yourself. But once all the data is put in there and you go over to your report, where were we here? Let's just use the screening again. I don't have a perfect example of this. If we change the format to a totaled format, what it automatically does is basically go through any column that has information in it really and total it for you. It even, look at this, it even just totals the check boxes. If they were numbers, the temperature is not adding the number, but yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a perfect example of that, but it does add a totals for this particular report based on how many submissions you're looking at here. So look for the format option here under the edit link here in reporting. But yeah, we can, if it's not doing what you're looking for, we can certainly add that to one of our feature requests. That's a common one. But again, with that in mind, we're not trying to recreate the wheel here. We're not trying to recreate a spreadsheet or a Word program or anything. It's really meant to be more of a paper replacement and a data capturing tool. But we can understand how those different functions would be helpful for you guys to see those totaling down the road. So we'll add that in as a request. Okay, I think that kind of covers the breadth of it here. And we have these webinars every month. Next month, we're going to be talking about the minimum and daily staffing requirements on the system to help you as admins to get coverage, right? To put it right in front of you exactly what, if you're covered or not, and the different ways you can manage those requirements, not only by number, but by qualifications or certifications, or how many people have a certification that's up to date, that sort of thing. So it's not just, do I have, X a number of people on staff? It could go well beyond that and have multiple levels of requirements involved in terms of what you have on staff, and make sure that you're up to code on any union contracts or requirements in that respect. So we'll see all those kinds of things and how you can manage that and customize your views for those as well. So take advantage of that. We'll look for that. Look for you on that next month. I think in the chat window would probably be even a link to that if you want to get just signed up for it right away, since you're here and you won't forget. And then we'll get the invites out to everybody as well, and you can join as we go. And then of course you'll get emailed a recording of today's session that you can share with anybody you need, and it'll be in your help section. And I thank everybody for their assistance here today, Nadine and Nancy. I'm sure there was a breadth of questions on there, so I appreciate them taking care of that. And Jesse taking care of everything in the technical in the background and producing everything and making us look pretty is basically what it comes down to, making us look good. So I appreciate that. Thanks everybody for your time. If we haven't covered anything that you wanted to hear about, that's when you call us, right? That's when you give us a call. It's free, right? A free phone, email, chat. Go right to your help section and give us a call, and we can talk out whatever you might need. Thanks very much. Have a good day and a great weekend. We'll see you next time. Thank you.